forced to marry her sister's millionaire fiancé in a coma until the day he suddenly woke up. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The rain had been falling since dawn, steady and cold, drumming against the cracked windows of a modest house on the edge of Houston. Inside, Anna sat at the kitchen table, her hands clutching a contract that shook beneath her trembling fingers. Her dark hair fell loose around her tired face, and her eyes were rimmed red from sleepless nights. Across from her, her uncle tapped the table with a heavy gold pen, his voice firm, merciless. "You will do it, Anna. Your sister is gone. The family cannot afford a scandal. Richard Carter needs a bride, even if he cannot stand at the altar himself. This marriage will secure everything we owe." The words hit her like ice. Richard Carter, the name alone carried weight. A young millionaire, struck down by a violent car accident weeks ago, left in a coma that doctors said he might never wake from. He was her sister's fiancé. He was supposed to be family only by promise, never by blood. But now the promise had fallen on her shoulders. Anna shook her head weakly. This is madness. He does not even know me. He cannot speak. He cannot agree. Her uncle's eyes hardened. He does not need to. The papers are signed. You only need to play your part. You wear the ring, you smile at the lawyers, and you save this family from drowning. Think of your mother, lying sick in bed. Think of the debts choking us. Anna pressed her lips together, her chest rising with uneven breaths. The rain outside seemed to pound harder, echoing the storm inside her. She thought of her mother, coughing in the dim bedroom down the hall. She thought of the notice pinned to their front door, warning of eviction. She thought of the half-finished textbooks stacked under her bed, reminders of the medical degree she had abandoned because survival came first. Her uncle slid the contract closer, the gold pen gleaming between them like a weapon. "Sign it, Anna, or you will lose everything." Her hand shook as she reached for the pen. Every instinct screamed to run, to fight, to refuse. But then she heard her mother cough again, a weak sound that twisted like a knife through her chest. She closed her eyes, a single tear slipping down her cheek, and pressed the pen to the page. The moment the ink touched paper, she felt the weight of chains close around her heart. Hours later, Anna stood beneath the towering iron gates of the Carter estate. The mansion rose before her like a fortress, its marble pillars gleaming against the stormy sky. A line of black cars waited in the driveway, and men in sharp suits moved briskly in and out of the grand doors. She clutched the small suitcase that held her few belongings and tried not to tremble. The doors opened. A tall woman in black, the family's lawyer, stepped out, her gaze sweeping Anna from head to toe with thinly veiled disdain. "So," the woman said coldly, "this is the bride." "Eight." Anna swallowed hard but said nothing. Her heart pounded so loudly it drowned out the storm. Somewhere inside this mansion, behind closed doors and guarded halls, lay Richard Carter, the fiancé she had been forced to marry. A man she had never spoken to, never touched, and who might never wake to see her face. And yet, from this moment forward she would carry his name. The heavy doors of the Carter estate closed behind Anna with a low echo that seemed to seal her fate. She followed the lawyer through the vast marble foyer, her footsteps faint against the polished floor. Tall portraits of stern ancestors lined the walls, their painted eyes watching her like judges from another century. "This way," the lawyer said briskly, her heels striking sharp against the floor. "You will stay in the East Wing until the ceremony is finalized." Anna's grip tightened on her suitcase. The word ceremony felt like a cruel joke. There would be vows, rings, photographs, all for a man who lay silent, unaware, behind machines upstairs. She forced herself to nod, her throat too tight to speak. That night, Anna sat alone in the grand guest room assigned to her. The velvet curtains were drawn against the storm, but she could still hear the relentless rain. She opened her small suitcase on the carved oak bed, revealing the few belongings she owned. 2 changes of clothes, a stack of worn notebooks, and an old photograph of her mother smiling weakly in a hospital bed. She touched the frame, her heart heavy. "Forgive me, Mama," she whispered into the silence. "I am doing this for you." The next morning, Anna rose early, slipping out of the east wing before the house stirred. She found herself wandering the manicured gardens, where fountains gurgled softly in the mist. Her mind drifted back to her own world, the one she had been forced to leave behind. A cramped apartment with peeling paint, bills stacked high on the counter, her mother's cough echoing through the paper-thin walls. She remembered the moment she had walked away from medical school. It had been the hardest choice of her life. She had dreamed of becoming a doctor, of helping people, of saving lives. But dreams did not pay rent. Dreams did not buy medicine. She had folded her textbooks shut and taken a waitressing job at a roadside diner, trading late-night study sessions for double shifts and tips in crumpled bills. Every paycheck had gone to survival groceries, hospital visits, overdue rent, and yet it was never enough. Her sister, beautiful and restless, had once seemed the family's way out. When she became engaged to Richard Carter, everyone whispered that fortune had finally smiled on them. But then the accident struck. Richard lay in a coma, and her sister vanished days before the wedding, leaving chaos behind. Anna had been the one left to pick up the pieces. Always her, the quiet one, the responsible one, the one who never said no when family demanded too much. She sat on a cold stone bench, staring at the ring that now circled her finger. It was too heavy, too bright, a band of gold that burned like a shackle. She twisted it slowly, her chest tightening with every turn. "Do I even exist to them?" she whispered bitterly. "Or am I only a replacement?" Her thoughts were broken by the sound of footsteps. A maid passed by carrying a tray of linens. She gave Anna a quick glance, her expression unreadable, before hurrying on. Anna felt her cheeks flush. Everyone in this mansion knew the truth. She was the bride by accident, the stand-in, the girl from the wrong side of town. Later that day, the lawyer gathered the household staff and announced the marriage arrangement with cold authority. "This union will proceed as planned," she declared. "Mr. Carter's family insists on preserving appearances. You will treat Miss Anna with respect as his lawful wife." Murmurs rippled through the room, but no one met Anna's eyes. Respect was not something that could be ordered. She felt it in the way they looked past her, in the stiffness of their bows, in the silence that followed her through the halls. That night, unable to sleep, Anna crept toward the west wing where Richard's private suite was kept under constant guard. A nurse opened the door for her with a skeptical look, but allowed her inside. The room was dim, filled with the steady hum of machines. Richard lay motionless on the vast bed, his dark hair neatly combed, his face pale against the white sheets. Tubes and wires connected him to monitors that blinked rhythmically. Anna stood frozen, her heart hammering in her chest. This was the man who now bore her name, a stranger, silent and unreachable, yet bound to her by law and by family duty. She stepped closer, her hands trembling as she reached for the edge of the blanket. For a moment, she imagined what he might have been like before the accident. Confident, powerful, the kind of man who made entire rooms fall silent when he entered. She had seen his face on magazine covers once, labeled the young visionary. Now he was only a ghost of that image. Her voice came out in a broken whisper. "I do not know if you can hear me, Richard, but they have forced me into this. I do not want your money. I do not want your power. I only want my mother to live." Her words trembled in the air, fragile and fleeting. She turned to leave, but then paused, looking back at the still figure on the bed. "I will wear your ring," she said softly. "But I will not lose myself." She closed the door gently, the echo of the machines following her down the long corridor. And in that moment, Anna understood her burden fully. She had married into a life she never asked for, tied to a man who might never wake, with a family that watched her every step. The stakes were no longer just about survival. They were about dignity, about holding on to herself in a world determined to strip it away. The following morning, Anna was summoned to the study. The Carter estate was hushed in the early hours, the corridors long and silent, the smell of polished wood lingering in the air. She walked with hesitant steps, clutching her hands together, as if bracing herself for another chain to be fastened around her. Inside the study, the lawyer was waiting, seated at a wide mahogany desk stacked with folders and crisp documents. Sunlight streamed in through the tall windows, highlighting the gold edges of the contract that lay open before her. The woman's sharp eyes lifted, scanning Anna with the same cold precision as before. "Sit down," the lawyer said. Her tone was not an invitation, but an order. Anna obeyed, lowering herself into the leather chair. the weight of the room pressed down on her. Heavy books lined the shelves, and the air smelled faintly of cigar smoke, as though the ghosts of powerful men still lingered there. The lawyer slid the papers toward her. "This is the marital agreement. You will review it carefully and sign before the witnesses arrive." Anna swallowed hard. She glanced at the neat paragraphs of text, the endless clauses written in language that twisted like thorns. Her heart began to pound faster as the lawyer began to read aloud. "Clause 1, the woman intoned, her voice crisp and steady. "You will be recognized as Mrs. Anna Carter for all legal and social purposes. However, you will not make claims upon Mr. Richard Carter's assets during his incapacitation." Anna's eyes flickered upward. "I never asked for his money," she whispered. The lawyer ignored her, continuing. "Clause 2. You will attend 5 public functions in the capacity of Mrs. Carter as scheduled by the family. You will conduct yourself with dignity and discretion, ensuring no scandal attaches to the Carter name." Anna's stomach tightened. 5 events, 5 rooms full of strangers who would see through her in an instant. She clenched her fists in her lap, trying to steady her breathing. "Clause 3, the lawyer went on. You will not interfere with Mr. Carter's business or personal holdings. His estate shall remain under the guardianship of the trustees until such time as he recovers or is declared permanently incapacitated." Her voice did not waver as she spoke the next line, though it struck Anna like a blade. "Clause 4. You are forbidden to pursue romantic relationships outside this union. Public perception must remain that of a loyal wife, no matter the truth of the circumstances." Anna's lips trembled, but she said nothing. She had expected chains, but hearing them read aloud was still suffocating. The lawyer paused, her gaze piercing. "Clause 5. This arrangement shall remain in effect for a minimum of 1 year. Should Mr. Carter awaken, the union will continue until such time as he decides otherwise. If he does not awaken, the trustees will determine the next course." Anna sat motionless, her hands pressed flat against the table to keep them from shaking. Her mind screamed to protest, but her voice was trapped behind the iron of her will. The lawyer leaned forward slightly, her expression cold and final. "Understand this, Miss Anna. You are here because you are useful. Not loved, not chosen, useful. Do not mistake your role." The words cut deeper than the contract itself. Anna forced herself to look down at the paper, her vision blurring with unshed tears. She remembered her mother's frail hand clutching hers, the sound of her uncle's voice demanding obedience, the walls of debt closing in. She could not walk away now. With trembling fingers, she lifted the pen once more. The scratch of ink on paper echoed in the silence, binding her to the terms as tightly as steel. When it was done, the lawyer closed the folder with a snap. "Very well. The staff will prepare you for your first appearance at the Carter family dinner tomorrow evening. Make no mistake, Miss Anna. Every eye will be watching. Do not falter." Anna rose slowly, her knees unsteady beneath her. She wanted to scream, to tear the contract in half, to run far away from the mansion that felt more like a cage. But instead, she bowed her head and left the study. Walking down the corridor, she pressed her palm against her chest, feeling the frantic beat of her heart. The gold band on her finger seemed heavier than ever. Not just a ring, but a chain that clinked with every step she took. She whispered to herself, barely audible. 1 year. I just need to survive 1 year. Yet deep inside, as the words faded into the silence of the grand halls, Anna knew survival would not be so simple. Because the moment Richard Carter's eyes ever opened again, the contract would no longer be just words on paper. It would become something far more dangerous. The following day arrived with the sound of footsteps rushing across polished floors and voices echoing in the grand halls of the Carter estate. Anna had barely risen from bed when a knock at her door startled her. The housekeeper entered, followed by a younger woman carrying a rack of clothes wrapped in plastic. The housekeeper's tone was brisk, almost dismissive. "Miss Carter, the staff has been instructed to prepare you. Tonight is the Carter family dinner. You are expected to attend." Anna blinked, still disoriented from another restless night. "Dinner?" she asked softly. The woman's eyes flickered over her plain dress, the hem frayed, the fabric faded. "You cannot be seen in that," she replied sharply. "You are his wife now. Appearances matter. Stand up." Anna hesitated, her stomach tightening, but she obeyed. The next hour became a blur of fabrics and instructions. Dresses in rich silks and satins were draped against her frame. Jewelry glittered under the chandelier's light, catching in her dark hair. The younger woman tugged at zippers and pinned hems, muttering about posture and poise. Anna stared at her reflection in the tall mirror. The girl who looked back at her did not feel like herself. A gold necklace gleamed at her collarbone. Her hair curled in soft waves, her lips tinted rose. She looked like someone who belonged in the mansion, yet inside she still felt like the waitress from the diner, clutching tips in her apron and counting every coin. The housekeeper's voice cut into her thoughts. "Remember, Miss Carter, do not speak too freely. Smile when spoken to. Walk with your chin high. People will be waiting for you to falter." Anna bit down on her lip. "And if I do?" she whispered. The housekeeper gave a thin smile. "Then you will prove them right." Ugh. That evening, the great dining hall glittered with light. Crystal chandeliers spilled golden glow across the long mahogany table, set with china and silver polished to perfection. The air hummed with the low voices of relatives, investors, and family allies. The Carter name drew them in like moths to flame, each eager to see the young bride who had appeared so suddenly. Anna paused at the entrance, her hands cold against the silk folds of her gown. Every head turned when she stepped into the room. She felt the weight of their stares, the whispers rising like smoke. That is her. The girl from nowhere. The replacement. Her uncle gave a slight nod from the far end of the table, urging her forward. Anna forced her feet to move. Each step echoed too loudly, her heart pounding in her ears. She took her seat, eyes cast down, the ring on her finger catching the candlelight like fire. Dinner began with polite chatter, but soon the questions sharpened like knives cloaked in velvet. "So, Anna," one aunt asked with a smile too sweet to be genuine, "tell us about your education. Where did you study before all of this?" Anna's throat tightened. She could feel the room waiting, hungry for her misstep. Slowly, she raised her eyes. "I studied medicine," she answered, her voice steady though her hands trembled beneath the table. "I had to leave before finishing. My mother's illness required me at home." A hush spread across the table. For a moment, no one spoke. Then another relative leaned forward, voice dripping with curiosity. "And what is it like, adjusting from a very different life to this one?" Anna swallowed hard, then let her lips form a small, honest smile. "It is overwhelming," she admitted. "But I do not measure a life by chandeliers or silk gowns. I measure it by the people I love and the promises I keep." The room stilled. For the first time that evening, Anna felt the balance shift. The whispers dimmed. Some faces looked away, uncomfortable. Others studied her with a flicker of respect. Her uncle's eyes narrowed from the far end of the table, but even he could not deny the quiet power of her words. The dinner resumed, though the tone had changed. Anna ate little, her appetite gone, but inside her chest, a small ember of strength had begun to burn. She had survived her first test, not by pretending to be someone else, but by holding on to her truth. When the guests finally departed and the hall grew quiet, Anna slipped away into the dim corridor. She leaned against the cold marble wall, closing her eyes. The weight of the evening still pressed on her shoulders, but she had not broken. She whispered into the silence, as though confessing to herself, "I am still Anna. No matter what they call me, I am still me." Upstairs, behind the closed doors of the West Wing, Richard Carter lay unmoving in his bed. Machines blinked and hummed softly. Unaware of the battle his new bride was already fighting beyond his walls. And though Anna could not yet know it, this was only the beginning of her trial. The mansion, the contract, the family suspicion, every step forward would test not only her endurance, but her very heart. The Carter family wasted no time in parading their new bride before the outside world. Just days after the family dinner, Anna was told she would accompany them to a charity gala downtown, an event crawling with reporters, investors, and socialites. The very thought of it made her stomach twist. The dress chosen for her was a sleek navy gown, its neckline elegant but modest. Jewelry sparkled at her throat and wrists, borrowed pieces from the Carter vault. As the driver opened the limousine door, flashes of cameras already lit up the night outside the glass windows of the convention hall. "Remember," the lawyer whispered coldly from the seat across from her, "tonight you are Mrs. Carter. Speak little, smile often, and do not let them see weakness." Anna nodded, though her palms were clammy against her lap. The moment she stepped out, the world exploded. Mrs. Carter looked this way. Is it true you were not the original bride? Are you only after his fortune?" Voices shouted over one another, microphones shoved forward like spears. Flashes blinded her vision. She froze, her breath catching in her throat. The guards pushed the crowd back, but the questions cut sharper than any blade. Inside, the ballroom glittered under golden light, chandeliers dripping crystal, a live orchestra swelling in the background. Guests in gowns and tuxedos mingled, eyes flicking toward Anna as she entered on the lawyer's arm. Whispers spread like ripples across the polished floor. She is the stand-in. Imagine marrying a man who cannot even open his eyes. A clever girl, if you ask me. She knows where the money is. The voices reached her even when hushed. Anna lowered her gaze, fighting the urge to flee. She moved through the room as if on trial, every step watched, every breath measured. At the center of the hall, a guest approached a man older, his smile wide but mocking. He raised his glass, voice loud enough for all around to hear. "Mrs. Carter, tell us, how does it feel to vow yourself to a husband who may never respond? Or do you enjoy the silence?" Laughter rippled through the crowd. Anna's face burned. The lawyer stiffened beside her but said nothing, leaving the silence heavy. Dozens of eyes locked on her, waiting for the poor girl from nowhere to falter. Anna inhaled slowly, summoning what little courage she had left. She lifted her chin, her voice steady though her hands trembled at her sides. "It feels," she said clearly, "like a promise that even silence cannot erase. I married a man, not his condition, and promises mean everything when they are all a person has." The laughter died instantly. The man lowered his glass, embarrassed. The surrounding guests shifted, whispers changing tone. "She has courage." "Not what I expected." "Perhaps there is more to her than we thought." The orchestra swelled again, the crowd moving on, but the air around Anna felt different. For the first time since signing the contract, she had turned suspicion into a fragile respect. Later, as she stood alone by the balcony, the city lights sprawling like stars beneath her, she allowed herself a single deep breath. The night air cooled her heated cheeks. She leaned against the railing, whispering softly, almost to herself, "I will not let them break me. Not here. Not now." From the shadows near the entrance, the lawyer observed her with narrowed eyes. She had expected Anna to crumble. Instead, the young bride had held her ground. Anna returned to the limousine long after midnight, exhausted but strangely lighter. She had faced the questions, the laughter, the cruelty, and survived. The battle was far from over, but for one fleeting evening, she had claimed a small victory in a war she had never chosen. Back at the estate, she paused outside Richard's chamber. The steady beeping of the machines filtered through the door. She pressed her hand gently against the wood, closing her eyes. "They wanted to see me fall tonight," she whispered. "But I stood tall. For myself, and maybe, somehow, for you." Ugh. The words lingered in the air like a vow, binding her tighter to the man who could not yet hear them. And deep inside, a seed was planted, the first spark of something she had sworn she would never feel in this forced marriage. The stirring of a heart slowly beginning to care. The days after the gala passed slowly, but the memory of Anna's defiant words lingered like a hidden flame in the corridors of the Carter estate. For the first time, whispers about her were not only cruel, some carried traces of respect, though grudging, as though people had begun to realize she was not as fragile as they had assumed. Yet when the guests were gone and the halls were silent, Anna still felt the weight of her solitude. She had won a small battle in public, but inside the mansion, suspicion still wrapped around her like chains. One evening, restless and unable to sleep, she drifted again toward the west wing. The nurse on duty gave her a nod, accustomed now to seeing her linger near the silent figure in the bed. The machines hummed, steady as always, the pale light casting long shadows across the room. Anna sat by Richard's side, folding her hands in her lap. For a long time she simply stared at him, the man who had become her husband only in name. His face was calm, almost peaceful, but the silence between them was unbearable. Her voice broke the stillness at last. "Do you know what they said about me tonight, Richard? That I was nothing but a shadow, a girl standing in someone else's place. Maybe they are right." She let out a soft, bitter laugh. "I never belonged in your world." Her fingers trembled as she reached for his hand, cool beneath hers. She traced the line of his knuckles gently, as though he might feel the comfort she longed to give. "But I made a promise, not just to your family, not just to mine, but to myself. I will not run, even if you never wake up." Her eyes burned, but she forced the tears back. The words tumbled out, raw and unguarded. "You should know, I never asked for your wealth. All I wanted was to keep my mother alive, to keep my family from crumbling. They think I am here to steal your fortune, but I would give it all away if I could just have one ordinary life again." The room answered with silence, save for the steady beep of the monitors. She closed her eyes, resting her forehead against the back of his hand. For a moment, it felt as though she could sense something, a faint warmth, a presence stirring beneath the stillness. She pulled back quickly, shaking her head. "No, I am only imagining things." But as she sat in the quiet, Anna realized the truth. This man she had been forced to marry was no longer just a burden, no longer only a symbol of chains. She had begun to speak to him as though he were real, as though the silence might break if she just held on long enough. The following afternoon, while the household prepared for another round of visitors, Anna slipped outside into the gardens. The autumn wind tugged at her dress as she walked among the roses, their petals heavy with dew. She sat on a stone bench, staring up at the gray sky. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to breathe freely. A sudden voice startled her. "You looked strong at the gala." Anna turned sharply. It was the young butler, Samuel, one of the few servants who had ever spoken kindly to her. His expression was cautious, but not unkind. "I only spoke the truth," Anna replied softly. He studied her for a moment. "Truth is rare in this house. Do not lose it." Then he bowed slightly and walked away, leaving Anna alone with her thoughts. She stared after him, her heart tight. Perhaps she was not entirely alone. Perhaps even in this gilded cage there were cracks where light could enter. That night, back in the West Wing, Anna lingered longer than usual at Richard's bedside. She adjusted his blanket, smoothed his hair gently from his forehead. Her voice was almost a whisper. "I do not know if you will ever open your eyes, but if you do, I hope you will not hate me for being here in your place." The monitor beeped steadily, calm and even, but Anna's heart raced as though waiting for an answer that never came. She leaned closer, the glow of the machines reflecting in her eyes. In that moment, she realized something terrifying. The man she had been forced to marry, the man she had promised only out of duty, was beginning to matter to her. And that change, more than the contract or the whispers or the threats, was what truly frightened her. The fragile balance that Anna had begun to build inside the Carter estate did not last long. The more she endured, the more those who despised her searched for cracks to break her. It began one afternoon when the Carter board gathered in the mansion's grand hall. Anna had been told her presence was required, though no one explained why. She arrived in a modest dress, her hair pulled neatly back, trying to appear calm. Yet the moment she stepped through the tall double doors, she knew she had walked into an ambush. At the head of the long table sat Charles Carter, Richard's cousin. His smile was sharp, too polished to be sincere. Around him, several relatives and advisors sat stiff and watchful, papers stacked neatly before them. "Mrs. Carter," Charles greeted, his tone smooth and mocking at once. "We are grateful you could join us. After all, as the wife of Richard, you hold a place of importance now, even if it is only in name." A ripple of chuckles moved around the table. Anna's heart thudded, but she forced herself to keep her head high. "Why am I here?" she asked quietly. Charles tapped a finger against a folder. "To address the rumors, of course. It seems some are questioning whether this marriage is valid. After all, Richard never consented. He cannot, lying as he is. And you, well, you are not the bride he chose." Ugh. The words struck like a blade. Anna clenched her fists beneath the table, her voice trembling but firm. "The contract was signed. Your lawyers oversaw it. I have done nothing but honor the vows forced upon me." Charles's smile widened, wolfish. Forced. An interesting choice of words. "Tell me, Mrs. Carter, do you truly expect us to believe you are here for anything but the fortune? That you are not simply waiting for Richard to die so you may inherit?" Gasps sounded from a few seats. Anna felt her cheeks burn, anger and shame clashing inside her. She wanted to shout the truth that she wanted none of their wealth, none of their world, but her throat locked. Charles rose to his feet, his voice carrying across the room. "This family will not be fooled by a girl from the streets, dressed in silk and gold. The board will petition to annul this union. The Carter name deserves dignity, not pity." Anna's breath caught, the walls seeming to close in. She looked around the table, but no ally met her gaze. Even the lawyer avoided her eyes, her silence an unspoken betrayal. When the meeting ended, Anna stumbled from the hall, her body trembling. Outside, in the cold corridor, she pressed her back to the wall and drew in a shaky breath. She whispered to herself, as if clinging to the last shred of strength. "I will not let him erase me, not when I have endured this far." Ugh. What she did not know was that upstairs, beyond the locked doors of the West Wing, Richard's body stirred for the first time in months. His hand twitched faintly against the white sheets, a silent ripple of change on the horizon. The morning after the board meeting, the mansion carried a chill heavier than the autumn wind outside. Anna wandered through the halls in silence, her thoughts consumed by Charles's threats. The weight of his words echoed inside her, threatening to unravel what little strength she had left. She found herself drawn once more to the West Wing. The nurse on duty stepped aside quietly as Anna entered the room. The steady rhythm of the monitors filled the air, a sound both comforting and suffocating. Richard lay, as always, pale and silent, his chest rising and falling with mechanical precision. Anna sank into the chair beside him, exhaustion painted across her face. She reached for his hand, curling her fingers gently around his. "They want to erase me, Richard," she whispered, her voice breaking. "They think I am nothing but a shadow, and maybe I am, but even shadows can fight to exist." Tears threatened, but she blinked them away. "If you could hear me, I would tell you that I never wanted this life. I only wanted to save my family. Yet here I am, fighting for a place in yours." Ugh. For a long time there was nothing, only the hum of machines and the faint rustle of curtains against the window. And then, so slight she almost missed it, Richard's fingers moved beneath hers. Anna froze, her breath caught in her throat. "Richard?" she whispered. His hand twitched again, stronger this time. The heart monitor quickened, beeping louder, urgent. The nurse rushed forward, eyes wide, calling for the doctor, but Anna could not move. She leaned closer, her heart racing wildly. Richard's eyelids fluttered, the faintest groan escaping his lips. And then, with agonizing slowness, his eyes opened. The room erupted in chaos, nurses, doctors, rushing footsteps, but Anna heard nothing except the sound of her own heartbeat. She was staring into the eyes of the man who had been a ghost to her for so long. His gaze was unfocused at first, then sharpened, locking on her. His lips parted, voice hoarse from months of silence. "Who are you?" Anna's breath trembled as she whispered, "I am your wife." Shock rippled across his face, confusion mixing with disbelief. Before she could explain, the doctors crowded around, checking his vitals, adjusting machines, speaking rapid orders. But Richard's gaze never left her. Later, when the room had calmed, Richard remained propped against pillows, weak but awake. His voice was stronger now, though still strained. "They told me nothing, and yet you are here." "Oh," Anna swallowed, forcing herself to meet his eyes. "I was forced into this marriage after the accident. I did not choose it, but I stayed." For a long moment, silence hung between them. Then Richard's expression softened, the faintest flicker of something unspoken crossing his face. Anna lowered her head, tears finally spilling free. "I do not know what will happen now, but I swear to you, Richard, I never wanted your fortune, only my family's survival." Richard studied her, his voice quiet, but firm enough to cut through the weight of the moment. "Then, perhaps," he said slowly, "you are the only person in this house who has been honest with me." The storm that had been brewing around Anna shifted in that instant. The man she had spoken to in silence for weeks was no longer just a figure in a coma. He was awake, alive, and looking at her with eyes that saw more than suspicion. And though neither could admit it yet, something had changed. The contract that once bound them in chains was about to transform into something far more dangerous and far more real. Richard's recovery was slow, but with every passing day he grew stronger. And with every hour Anna remained by his side, speaking honestly, never hiding from him, a bond began to form that no contract could dictate. When Charles attempted to push the annulment forward, Richard stood in the boardroom himself, pale but resolute. His voice carried across the stunned room. "Anna is my wife. She stood for me when no one else would. She belongs in this family, and no one will take her place." The attempt to strip her dignity crumbled. Justice, at last, was on her side. Weeks later, Richard led Anna into the gardens where the roses bloomed white under the spring Sunday. He held out a small velvet box, opening it to reveal a new ring. No contracts, no bargains, only a promise between us. Will you marry me again, this time by choice? Tears filled Anna's eyes as she whispered, yes. Their kiss beneath the blossoms sealed what fate had forced and what love had made true. The girl, once bound by desperation, had found her freedom not in escape, but in the heart of the man who finally awakened to choose her.